Real people, real stories.
我的生活，我的故事
A video series celebrating the spoken history and stories shared by members of our community.
In order to understand our future, we need to look to our past. Oral histories help fill in the gaps between documented history and physical artifacts. We hope to preserve Chinese American history through family stories, personal experiences, and insights into historical events from members of our community.
Today we will be speaking with Gloria Wong, a valued member of our community since the 1930s. Keep watching for stories and lessons from our life growing up and living in Portland, Oregon.
To begin with, my grandmother was born in Portland in 1866 on Southeast Oak, downtown. And she had 8 children. And my mother was the youngest, and she was born in 1908. So all my aunts and uncles all lived in Portland, except for one moved over to Fresno, California. But otherwise, they were all members of the Chan clan. But anyway, we all grew up in the Southeast Portland. And I'm the youngest of 4 girls in my family. And we all grew up in Ladd's Addition, the Circle, and that's where the Chinese were first able to buy homes. A lot of the Chinese weren't allowed to buy houses. So they always had somebody else buy it for them, and then they sold it to them. We all went to Abernathy Grade School. And at one time when when my sister and I were at Abernathy, we had 8 other Chinese siblings in our class. And during our high school years, we had a strong Chinese community where the young people had a lot of dances, formal dances, and we had skating parties at the skating rink on Southeast Grand Avenue there. But that's where all the kids got together. We had more activities then than they do now, I think. And mainly because at that time, everybody lived not too far, and they were all at the same school. It makes a difference. Even at Chinese school, most of us went to the American school during the daytime, and then at 5 o'clock, we're all down at Chinese language school. Whether you wanted to go or not, you were there, which helped. And I think it was fun for us that went there, because during the day, you're really good students. You're listening to the teacher. And then at Chinese school, you can kind of let loose. And that was where the kids had a lot of fun too. But that was from 5 to 8, Chinese school. So we were really in school all day. And then even on Saturdays, the Chinese school was from 9 to 1. So, and then on Sundays, we went to Sunday school, either at Baptist church or Presbyterian church. Actually, I graduated from high school when I was 16. And I took a lot of business classes in high school. So I became a secretary, right? I got a job. And I was at the University of Oregon Medical School. That was before it was OHSU. I was there from 49 to 51 when I got married. And my husband was in the Air Force. I left there in 51. We moved to Honolulu, where he was stationed at Hickam Air Force Base. And when I got there, it was like really a different experience, because we really lived a sheltered life, you know, with just family and the same old things every time. So going over there was a different story, but I did get a job at the Mutual Telephone Company. And at that time, I was paid $1.25 an hour. And that was a bonus, because the starting wages for clerical work was 75 cents an hour. That was back in 1951. So we survived. We came back 1954. My son was born in 1953 in Honolulu. But it was interesting being over there, because all kinds of nationalities. And it was, I lived in Waikiki, in an apartment in Waikiki, instead of at the air base. And so it was easier to get to work. Yeah. And then when we came back in 1955 or 54, my husband went back to Oregon State in engineering. He graduated in 58, and then we moved back to Portland. And at that time, my uncle, one of my mother's brothers, was sick, and he was a bachelor living in Ladd's Addition, where we were. So we moved in with him to take care of him. Until 1961, we bought a lot here and had our house built. And my children went to the elementary school across the street, and at Hossford, and at Cleveland. And at the time at Hossford, I was talking to the principal, and he was telling me they had 2 classes of each grade, and each of the grades had a Wong in it, a student by the last name of Wong. So that's how many Asians we had in the southeast area. Our kids now, the new generation, they do have Chinese club or Chinese association in each school, don't they? Which is a good thing. Yeah, it's nice that they do that. Back in 2012 or 2011, the kids that grew up in Chinatown, which is on 4th Avenue there, they all got together and they started a Chinese old-timers luncheon. And back in 2012, when they first started, it was just by word of mouth. They had 25 or 30 coming to lunch.
We had 2 lunches a year, March and September. And the last one we had in September in 2019, for the pandemic, we had 190 people come to lunch. It was just catching up with old times, catching up with what your family was doing. No politics talking or anything. The 60-year-olds and the 70-year-olds were coming. They called themselves the wannabes. The wannabes, old timers, is how they refer themselves to. It's cute that they want to call themselves the wannabes. Yeah, I don't think they really want to be that old though either. So we had a lot of those. And this year, they had one in December. Well, not too long ago. The Super King Buffet is closed. So there's a new buffet on 119th and Division. I'm not sure what it's TJ or something buffet. They had it there, and you had 100 people show up. I've been the greeter at the old timers. When they first come in, we check them off the list, and then they go and pay their bill, pay for their lunch. It's a good group. It's a fun group. And people from out of town that used to live in Portland come back up for it. They know there's going to be one.
We have a good Chinese community. Back in 1972, we held a Chinese dance class, and we hired Frank Lau, who was from China, who was a dancer. And I think Frank was the same age as some of my own kids. So he came down from Seattle. He was sponsored by a Seattle company. And so he taught our girls different Chinese dances. We did that for a couple years. We did try to integrate a lot of Chinese customs so the kids know where they're from. You need to know that too. Yeah, you should be proud of your heritage too.
I kind of wish the youth would be more communicative. I mean, as a whole, to get to know each other and do things as a group like we did. But I know it is hard because they're all different high schools, but it is hard for the young people now.
We just have one more question.
Okay.
If you could give any advice to the youth currently, what would it be?
Oh, I think I'll ask my daughter for that.
I'm just going to tell you what my parents have told me. And to this very day, it resonates, it's still applicable. Never forget where you came from, because in order to go further, you have to know where you first started. And never be ashamed of who you are, because you cannot remove that, no matter what. But appreciate the fact that you're here and that you can make a difference.
Amen.